orange wine.
Hey everyone. Yes, I am hiding behind a magnum of orange wine. Welcome to another installment of virtual tastings here at Henry and Son with me, Jill Mott. I'm hiding behind orange wine because it comforts me so. I love orange wine. Orange wine is a fairly new thing in the Minneapolis market here. I would say, like, for the last few years, people have been getting all into it. And the reason I wanted to speak to it today was I bet I get half a dozen to a dozen calls a day that I'm here at the shop, either asking about orange wine, if I can include in orange wine in their order what is orange wine, and so I wanted to speak to it today because it's not really a far-fetched concept. It definitely is not white wine steeped with oranges, which could be a thing, but not today. Orange wine has been around since, for centuries, if not millennia. We know that they, um, you know, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, people were blending red and white grapes together and they were macerating them to make this rosé-ish, sludge-like, unsulfured, probably deliciousness. But for all intents and purposes, nowadays, when they're making orange wine, we're taking sometimes exclusively white wine and the skins of white wine, or white grapes, I should say, and we're macerating them. We're allowing them to steep together a la red wine, because that's how red wine gets its color, in order to develop a lot more flavor and a lot more texture. And the reason why is 90+% of the phenols or the aromatics and the textures we can get from wine reside in the skins. So if 90% of the wine's flavor comes from skins, why are we getting rid of it in white wine is my question. And a lot of times in rosé, we'll get a few hours of skin contact to yield a really fun, nice, light color. But for white wine, it's like, pick grapes, straight to the press, Bob's your uncle, and you end up with this clean, crisp, delicious little thing that, I don't know, could be more interesting, I guess, is how I want to get there. So I figured I'd talk today about some favorites that I'm enjoying right now. This first one here is from a producer called Enderle and Mole. And Enderle and Mole, they are out of southern Germany, a region called the Baden. And these guys are cracks, as the British would say, cracks at growing Pinot Noir. They're making Pinot Noir at the level that Burgundians are making Pinot Noir, meaning, like Burgundy, you can taste, like, part and parcel where these certain wines are coming from. Incredible stuff. And of course, smart people have, and like very active minds and excited about things, they get bored quickly. So yes, they're always making great Pinot Noir, but they decided to have their hand at this they make this super fun blend called Weiss und Grau. I don't speak German, but I will translate the little bit I know. Weiss means white, and this is making reference to Pinot Blanc, or Weissburgunder, und Grau. Grauburgunder means Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio in German. So this is a blend of about 60% Weissburgunder or Pinot Blanc, and then about 40% Grauburgunder or Pinot Gris. And it spends about 3 to 4 weeks on the skins, depending on the vintage, sometimes as little as 1 week. And what you're left with is this really cool, kind of just verging on a copper color. But Pinot Gris and both Pinot Blanc, they're like a little bit pinkish when they are growing, and they're fully ripe and a little gray. So you'll notice the color is a little bit like that as well. And oh my gosh, I have a zoom function that I just can't wait to use on this camera right there. Look at that color. Okay, couldn't help myself. We have a new camera here at Henry and Son, and we're just all really excited about it. Anyway, so these guys, they're growing these two dudes are growing amazing Pinot Gris and Pinot Blanc and Pinot Noir on, they call it Muschelkalk soils, which Muschelkalk, wow, that's a tongue twister. Muschelkalk translates to like a limestone-like soil, and it really keeps these grapes that can otherwise get some girth to them. It gives it a brightness, which I really like, and they also have they grow these grapes on soils that are called, pardon me, Buntsandstein. That's sandstone. I had to refer to my notes. But sandstone creates kind of like this fluidity, and much like alluvial soils can add to a wine. which is really quite pretty because it allows this wine to be it's mineral driven in the nose, a little bit of like just starting to be dehydrated apricots, but you really do get a more mineral laden wine and a really beautiful entry point for natural wine for people. At $25, this is probably one of the best entry level orange wines on the market today. And these guys are doing all organic and biodynamic fruit, all native yeast ferments, which is really cool. And after fermentation, they're bringing these grapes, maceration and fermentation, they're transferring them these huge, it's bigger than the screen will fit, 2,500 liter old oak barrels, which just allows these flavors to appropriately breathe and the wine to breathe through the oak, but without absorbing very oaky flavors. So this is by no means an oaky wine. And it's just incredibly awesome and vivid flavors that are coming from southern Germany. Oh, man. And the 10 months this spends in the barrel just gives this really pretty, just slightly little plump mid-palate. It's like a speed bump for those of you who live in a neighborhood and it's like you have to slow down to go over the speed bump. It's like just this little like speed bump on the mid-palate, which is really quite comical and fun. They're adding low amounts of sulfur, and it's just a beautiful place to start if you haven't had orange wine. And if you have, it's just a really fun place to continue. Next, I wanted to talk about a friend of mine, Matthew Rorick. This guy is growing grapes and making wine, mostly out of the Sierra foothills. He does purchase some grapes, but this is his own estate vineyard called Rorick Estate Vineyard, or Rorick Heritage Vineyard, because he's got like 3 gazillion grapes, different types of grapes planted. And here he's got muscat planted, and it's called Bisamraten, which means muskrat, like the animal muskrat, because it's a finicky animal, and muscat is finicky to grow. And you say muscat, you're like, but I don't like sweet wines, Jill. No. This is such a dry muscat. And what's cool is because we have all of these textures, antioxidants, and flavor in a wine, especially because of the antioxidants, sometimes these orange wines, if they haven't added a lot of sulfur, these wines can stay open for weeks. We had a Bisamraten open for 2 weeks here at the shop and tasted it, and it was still gorgeous and delicious and really, really fun. Here, the muscat, like a lot of muscats, very floral, irisy, very like stargazer, lily, but still in this dry package and very chiseled. Here we have like easy drinking with the Enderlein mole. Here we have quite a bit more texture and playful bounciness on the palate. This would be like potholes. You're driving, you're like, you don't want that for your car, but you want that for your orange wine sometime, which is really cool. And this guy is on limestone. These grapes are grown on limestone and schist soil, so very much like limestone here. The schist adds just another layer of complexity and chiseled quality, about 2 weeks on the skins. And man, if you could see these floaties, let me try to do a little. That's a goodie. This is a goodie, I'm telling you. Especially if you like to have wine open like I do for a few weeks at a time to see how they age is really fun. Last but not least, I'll talk to you about Matthew's, just so happens. Magnon. A double bottle of wine. It's a 1.5 liters as opposed to 750 milliliters. This is Gewürztraminer that's at this point 7 years old, people. And it's had some time on the skins. Gewürztraminer, much like Muscat, is floral, got a lot of floral notes. But here you get girth, and you get weight, and you get richness. And I'm just saying, we've experienced 50 degrees here in Minneapolis already. And not to date this video, but that's just screaming for slightly richer things without being like, I want a 17% alcohol red wine, right? And so this is perfect for right now. You're going to start roasting birds, maybe some roasting tofurkey if you don't eat birds, which is totally cool. I'm all up in the tofurkey business too. I love it. But it's called the wow, that's a tongue twister. The Frau Frelusches, which is a really, I can't remember. He actually told me the story and I'm blanking about what that means. but it's a single vineyard Gewürztraminer from Russian River Valley that almost takes up the entirety of the screen with how big it is and how tall it is. Don't be alarmed by the flute style bottle. It is definitely a dry Gewürztraminer, but has everything you want in an orange wine, esoteric orange wine for sure, and very rare. We have one bottle. So for my glass years, enjoy the orange wine. It's a perfect season for it. And yeah, here's to happy drinking. Cheers.
The night, same till you've drank orange wine.